All right, hello everyone, and welcome to this week's edition of NIL The Cast, the podcast where we talk everything NCAA name, image, and likeness. Today we're going to be going over some of the statistics and data points from NIL so far, as well as some of the more creative NIL deals that have been popping up. I'm your host, Joshua Adams, and let's get this thing started. So, to start everything off, we're going to be talking about some statistics and data points from the first full year of name, image, and likeness to just kind of get a grip about how things started, where they can go from here, the points that we could see kind of change, and everything around that. So, to start off, one of the major points is obviously the amount of money that's being made on these NIL deals. And I'm going to be honest, it was surprising, but it's a lot lower than you might think. Um, in 2022, it was the average value of all the NIL transactions was $1,815, which is not nearly what you see reported on some of the deals. But it's interesting to look at the median value of those NIL transactions is only $53. So really, it's being carried by a lot of very large deals for the top stars across sports. Whereas if you really look into the middle value across all the deals, median versus average, it's a lot lower. It's only at $53. So a majority of these student athletes are not looking at the crazy amounts of money that is reported with some. They're most of the time just looking at a few dollars here, a few dollars there. And then, of course, an obvious thing to look at with NIL deals is if you look at the top of the top student athletes, which is going to be your Power 5. The Power 5 deals, your average value is going to be $2,144, which is higher, considerably higher than the total NIL transactions. Now, it's not a crazy big difference, but still a good amount. And then the real change you see is in the average value of non-Power 5 NIL deals, where that drop off is going to be $2,144 for Power 5, all the way down to $558 for non-Power 5 NIL deals. And both of those, again, going to be average value. So not the median like we looked at first, but the average value. So obviously, huge drop off when you drop off from that Power 5 level down to the non-Power 5, which, that could lead to some answers about why you see all of the transfer numbers, which we'll get into, as, that money change from non-Power 5 to Power 5 is considerable. So jumping into that transfer portion of NIL, because most people say NIL could be leading to transfers, and that is somewhat true. If you look at it, we'll start with the general number that you're looking at for transfers, and just across all college students, not necessarily student athletes, but just students in general, you see a 30 to 35% clip for students transferring after a year. And now, if you look specifically into the 2022 transfer portal, you only had 5.4% of D1 athletes transfer. So that obviously is not even close to the general student body transfer numbers. But obviously, when we get the statistics back for these next years, that will probably climb some. But even just 5.4% of D1 athletes is noticeable. And with NIL, it will continue to grow, probably not to a major amount, but just in small increments. We'll continue to see more and more as people try to make that, as student athletes try to make that jump to maybe getting more NIL money. But obviously, this will not be a crazy large change. Then one of the final large NIL statistics I want to get into before we move on to the fun part of today, the NIL deals and the creativeness there, is social media and its impact on NIL. Now, in the first year of NIL, 72% of NIL activity was through social media. So that is a considerable amount of deals are done through social media, nearly 3/4. And so obviously the social media deals, that's what you see most of the time. You have people who have a brand reach out to them, and what they do is, okay, if I'm signing a deal with a clothing brand, then they post on Instagram wearing the clothes. They say, you know, influencer or ambassador for that brand, go shop here. I really enjoy the clothes. And for the most part, that is what most NIL activity is. It's through that social media. Um, and the other 25%, that's the non-social media. That could be anything from, visiting a local school and doing something NIL related for that school or for a brand, but it's not necessarily social media. One of my favorite NIL deals I've looked into, we'll talk about later, is NIL deals where they're paid to not use social media due to the mental effects and health concerns that come with an overuse of social media. So while social media accounts for a lot of name, image, and likeness deals, it is not all of them. There is still that pocket where you get some of the more creative deals. All right, so now that we have covered the statistics on name, image, and likeness, I wanted to jump into some of the different deals and the creative deals that have popped up thus far, as well as where are the deals going? What could we see here in the next couple of years? So we'll start off with the creative deals and then move into the deals that maybe will show what the trend is for NIL in the next couple of years. So to start, one of my favorite type of deals involves the players who don't get the most love. And this was a really interesting deal I saw at Brigham Young University, which was walk-on deals. Okay, so they had one deal that they brought for all their walk-ons, which means all the much more because these are players that are not on scholarship. The deal was actually through Built Bars, and it was, just like any other NIL deal, and it was for the walk-ons in specific. So it was just an opportunity for them. They get a deal with Built Bars, and then that's how they get their piece of the name, image, and likeness pie. Then two of the other interesting or creative NIL deals that I wanted to mention before we get into where the NIL market can go from here, some of the deals that look more into the future, was one of my favorite ones, a cornerback for the Alabama Crimson Tide football team. His name is Kool-Aid McKinstry, and he actually got an NIL deal with Kool-Aid, which is just one of those smart brand moves, take advantage of a unique opportunity. And he did a string of social media posts for them, and that's just a pairing perfect for those two. And then the last one was the Atlanta Braves, who gave NIL deals to players from both the University of Georgia and the University of Georgia Tech. And that's just, taking advantage of the location you're in. You know that some of your fans are going to be fans of those two schools, probably most of them. So taking into account that those fans are probably fans of those schools, well, let's utilize name, image, and likeness to get two athletes who are recognizable from these two schools, who fans can cheer for on both sides of the athletics, professional versus collegiate. So finally, just jumping into the NIL deals that will tell what's to come. I have three main ones. Number one is going to be NFTs. Now, this is kind of taking a step back. NFTs have tapered down in the hype that was more so over the summer months of last year. But that is still a place where if that starts to rebound and climb, this is something that is easy for these athletes to utilize. You work with a company, and an NFT can be anything from, okay, I work with my school. The school has a deal maybe with some sort of NFT service, and maybe a player makes a great play. Okay, well, we make an NFT of that play, and now that player can sell that NFT of that play, and some fan gets a NFT of a big play in their season. And that's something that can really be utilized as much or as little as a player or a school want, because there's no stoppage to the amount of clips you can put out. If you're making the plays, you can make NFTs of the plays. And if you want to make only one of that NFT, well, maybe you make one, but you also have the ability to make many more of that one, so that maybe you're making more money off of those NFTs. And since it's the player's play, it only makes sense for them to get a cut of the money that they make off that NFT of that play. The next deal or type of deal that I wanted to cover about where NIL can go, what do we look at in the future, is apps such as Booster Athletes, which is an app that works almost in a sense like a Cameo, where a fan pays X amount of money and their favorite college athlete makes a personalized video for them. And this is something that takes very little time. You can crank out so many in a little amount of time. So these athletes, on your day off, maybe you sit down, you go through 14 requests. If you price each one at $25, well, then you're looking at a pretty penny for one day. And athletes can make this, and this is something that's not likely to go away. Fans are always going to look for that personalized touch with an athlete. You see this through fans loving your type of team days that where I go get signatures with the team, or I go talk to players on the team. This is just another touch to that and a step forward. And this is something that you already see how we have two companies that do sort of the same thing. This is only something that's going to grow. People like this. It makes for a good birthday present or a good Christmas present. And so that's just a unique type of deal. And it's something that I see as something we will look at more and more as time moves forward. And the final future trend that I wanted to look into that could catch on, I think will catch on with NIL deals, is something that M7 Sports is doing, where they are charging no commission for college athletes with these NIL deals. And now this isn't necessarily a type of deal, but it's a trend that I think will continue, because if this group does it, a lot of athletes are going to say, okay, I would choose to do my NIL deals through this agency, through this group, because if they're not going to charge me commission, that makes me more money. And if that catches on and you start to have more and more of these groups where, okay, we're not going to charge the athlete commission, it's their money, then you're going to see more and more of those pop up, and it will become the new normal to be these groups not charging commission, and they can get their funds elsewhere through that. But that's really the final big trend that I wanted to cover, those big three trends that I think will continue throughout NIL in the coming years. So that's going to be it for me today. I just wanted to say thank you for sticking around and listening. Hopefully you enjoyed what we covered today on the podcast. We hope to see you next week. Goodbye.